So, hi everyone, I'm Tim Von Rieden, better known as vonnart Online, and I do these weekly Wednesday live streams every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Time, mainly to discuss art, things that might be technical, so I might show how to draw something, or just a discussion or maybe having fun in general. Depends on how I'm feeling that week. But today, I'm going to be sharing my top 9 influencers of 2018. And these are artists that directly influenced the pieces I made, directly influenced the way I thought about art, and the way that I would kind of attack it, not only on a creative level, but also a technical level. So I'm hoping to introduce you guys to some people that maybe you're not familiar with. And the goal is that you are walking away with maybe a little broader of a spectrum of a visual eye for different artists that are out there. And this is the first year I'm actually including late artists, so artists that have passed on. And I will share the Instagram. Oh man, why is this so hard to talk already? This better not be the whole stream. I got like 2 hours ahead of me here. I'm sharing their username on Instagram if they are still with us and kicking on social media. Okay, so let's go ahead and start this all off. And thank you so much, everyone, for coming to these streams. It means a lot. And if you want to join our Discord, we have a link below. It's been pretty bustling lately, and I just added an emoji, I think like 2 days ago. So you can officially add Astrid the cat emoji to anything that is discussed in our Discord. And we have an emoji contest going on right now. So you can submit yours, and it will potentially be a permanent emoji for our Discord community. So that is something that I'm actually really excited about. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my actually number 1 biggest influence of the year. So let me go ahead and block this all off. Okay, if it wasn't obvious from the people that kind of watch me do new art this year, my number 1 is Mucha. And this is an artist that is deceased now, but Mucha is someone that I knew about when I was in college, but I feel like he was more known for the art that looked like this. And admittedly, that's not really my favorite. And actually, this is the reason I was kind of turned away from his art. It feels very blocky. The line weights are very heavy. And it just didn't vibe with what I was kind of into. But now I'm older, and I feel like every year my tastes kind of change and evolve. And the things that I'm kind of into now, and I always talk about how I want a marriage between creativity and technical ability. So when I see a great artist technically, so someone that does like hyperrealism, I can credit them on their technical prowess, but it's really hard for me to get behind the fact that there is often a lack of creativity, a lack of being different or original. And even though I can appreciate it for a technical side, I can't really appreciate it for a creative side. And then same is true for the other half, is artists that are really creative but don't really have a technical ability to them. So their ideas are wild and crazy and really fun, but they haven't really learned the kind of fundamentals of art, of like understanding contrast and values and composition and things that could make a great art piece. So unfortunately, the art ends up looking a bit lacking. And I think when an artist can combine the two in like this unity that can really showcase not only how unique it can be, but how powerful on a technical side. And I think those are my favorite pieces. And especially the older I get, the more that I'm attracted to things that are different. So something that catches my eye because I haven't seen something in that kind of look before, that really will grab my attention. And a lot of this is subjective and relative, and I know that I have a very specific taste, and that's not to say that these artists are better than other artists, but they're ones that really captured my attention, and that's why I want to share them with you. So even like this kind of Mucha art, if you appreciate this kind of art, that's great. It's just not my flavor, per se. And that's why I like to focus on these pieces more. And I didn't really even know that he did more than that very, very heavy Art Nouveau style until my friend Pui Illustrated on Instagram, brought over this Mucha book, which if you are liking what you see, this book, let me make sure you guys can see this on my OBS here. Okay, it's called The World of Mucha, and it has the cover image on it because this is my favorite hand and arm drawing ever right now. And that's why I wanted a close-up shot in the preview here, because if you look at that hand, it's so bent and awkward. If you silhouetted it, you probably wouldn't even recognize that it's a hand. And that's why I find it so beautiful, is because they took something that is so familiar, and it's not even really that weird of a pose. It's just the camera angle coming toward the elbow and then up the arm into this hand that's like holding up a head. I just think it's so intricate and beautiful. And I'll talk about that more in just a second, because his hands are something that really I find entrancing. So for each of the artists on my list, I also wrote down the first words that would pop in my head when I think of their work. And for Mucha, the words that came to mind were, let me see here, were intricate, posed, contrasting shapes of large and small, powerful, and hands. I just wrote down hands, not really an adjective, but you'll understand what I mean when I talk about his use of hands in his work. And in the top 9, I just want to make a quick note. I'm not going to be including ones that I'm continually inspired by, like Alan Williams or Miles Art or vonnart, ones that kind of are very similar to my style. I think those are artists that are always going to be inspiring me for the rest of my life. And then these are 9 artists that I really feel stood out this past year. And that's why I want to give them more credit, because obviously Alan Williams is my art hero, but he's not on this list. Okay. Oh, and the other thing is the artists that really catch my attention, not only what we've talked about, are artists that are fearless. They know what they're good at, yet they continue to push themselves to do more. And they don't play in the safe zone, which is inspiring for me as an artist who feels like I could easily just play a safe game. And I see other artists pushing themselves, and it motivates me to continue pushing further. And that's why I hope to be then an inspiration for any of you guys that are, able to play in a safe zone, but are choosing to keep pushing the parameter of like, what are you capable of? Whew. Okay, let me drink some water before I keep talking. I'm like short of breath already, and I'm still on number 1. Okay, so Mucha, I'm giving a little more time to, and I have a lot more slides of Mucha, because he really had like shifted the way I drew in this year, in the way that I draw very statically. I don't really draw dynamic angle composition wise pieces, and I've always had so many other people in my life tell me I need to focus on it. And then seeing his whole work and his collection in this book, he didn't really do anything besides these very not stiff, I shouldn't say stiff, but very posed figures. They didn't really have a background. They were very angelic in a way, and it was very similar to what I wanted to be doing. And this reminded me that I can go into that section, and I need to stop listening to other people when they tell me what I need to be doing. If anything, I need to be telling myself what I want to do rather than listening to what others tell me to do. So Mucha, even though he's best known for these pieces, he's least known for what I would argue are like some of his best works, and they are the epics. So these epics, they're not only, Mucha's not the only one that has done epics, and there's definitely like a very broad definition of what defines an epic, but essentially it's like a really large piece that has a lot of detail and story behind it. And when I look at Mucha's, here's another one, you would think, wow, this is really intricate and what a great painting. But then when you see how big it is in person, I believe the one on the bottom here is like, I want to say 18 feet long. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know it's a really, really, really big painting. And just the amount of time and detail that went into this, and yet it doesn't follow traditional realism standards. Yes, it might have some rendering ability that borders on a technically realism side, and thank you for following. But when you really look at this, they have people floating in the air, the sizes are unproportional in terms of the people in the air versus the ones on the ground, and then you could say, well, those might be the gods versus the civilians. But your mind is racing when you're looking at something like this, trying to piece together what the story is, or it's so detail heavy that your mind just like shuts off. It's like you know it's good, you label it's good, and then you move on. And that's been really intriguing for me too. The idea of a piece that's so detailed and intricate that a viewer looking at it they instantly recognize it's good, but also instantly recognize that it's too much to process and they need to look away. I find that very intriguing. And then my favorite epic of his, this one, is just so bold and colorful. And every time I look at this, I can just see so much emotion in the different figures that are represented here, but especially in the large one in the back, for obvious reasons. But just the color focus of these very blue, almost melancholy colors, and then it's just pushing forward this like warm energy, and then it's exploding in this. And even the position is like this explosion, and I find that very entrancing. I think Mucha is a very powerful artist that, even though he did these really cool works, he's most known for the stuff like this. And while I still think there are cool things about that, I think when you compare it to these other ones, I just don't find them as powerful. So going back to what I was talking about before, about why I wrote down the word hand, I think Mucha has a really smart use of hands. And admittedly, I think he is the best hand artist I've ever seen. Not because I think he draws the most realistic hands, or not because I think they have the most grit or grain to them. There's other artists, actually. One of them on my my like honorable mention list was Tito Victor with 2 V's. And Dennis underscore Zarazin, if that's how you pronounce it. But essentially, he does a bunch of arms that are super veiny and bony and borderline creepy. And I love those hands equally. But the reason I love Mucha's is because every single hand in his drawings and his pieces are so well thought out and crafted that they're not just an afterthought. They definitely seem to be like what would that be called? Basically, when he was thinking of the pose, the hands were very much a prominent part of the decision making. And I even wanted to silhouette the hands here because sometimes it can be overwhelming looking at everything. But when you just specifically look at the hands, you can really see the storytelling nature behind them. And even though they're kind of simple, like if you look at especially like the top right one, they're simple in a way, but they're also very telling of what that character is doing or what they're saying or what they're feeling. And they're hands that really kind of pushed me to not only do the collector, but they're hands that wanted me to always have them be a prominent yet purposeful part of a drawing, if I'm doing a character specifically. And my absolute favorite hand, the one down here, I find it so good. And I think he's going to be an artist that I'm going to be studying for hands for a while now. And not only when I look at the hands do I find them interesting, but what they're holding and how they're holding it is very interesting. Especially, he has some hands that are just like holding a flower, but it's a very strong positioned hand. And then it's just like holding a flower coming out of the hand like this. And it's a very, I guess, unrealistic pose and unnatural way of holding something. But by doing that, it creates such a more interesting composition. And it really brings you into this character of why they're holding these things the way they are, like statue and almost otherworldly. And I find that so entrancing, especially when someone really focuses on hands in their art as a character artist. And the last thing that I want to talk about with Mucha is that he was someone that would take his own photos. Hence why his poses and hands and clothing look so real, even though they're mostly line art, is because he would take the reference photos and he would really pose them. And I think that's something that younger artists don't even take into account nowadays, where they just think of finding images on Google or Pinterest, which I still think is valuable. But actually having a live model where then you can, fit them and pose them in whatever you want, I think can create a more, not only realistic drawing, but a more powerful one. Because you can see all the curves, the edges, the attitude in the model itself. And even for my Imagine FX feature, that I'm doing later this month, I'm going to be doing an angel piece, and I'm having my friend Nubia, who I admire so much, and I went to college with her, and she's the reason I in my opinion, got better quickly, is because she gave me that direct competition to work off of. And I wanted her to be the subject matter for this piece, and she's coming over. And I actually want to pose her and do the same thing that a lot of these old traditional masters used to do, and even painting masters, where they would have either subject matter and have to paint them live. This is before the photographs were even a thing. And then, I mean, obviously now that it is a thing, I'm going to be using a lot of photographs. But I want to pose her, and I really want to look at the clothing and not just throw a bunch of robes on, but really pose it and make it look flowy and purposeful. I think that's a word that I'm going to use a lot in 2019, is purposeful, because for a lot of my art career, it was definitely leaning toward more realism. But now that I'm older, I'm definitely leaning more towards purposeful, even if it gets even further away from realism. So, as you can see here, I think he did a phenomenal job posing his models. None of them ever look stiff. They always feel very fluid and almost part of the environment that they are either leaning on, or in some cases, well, actually most of cases, I feel like they're always leaning on something. But even like this top left one, you can see a direct comparison of the reference and the end result. And what was crazy is to me is I found a lot of these on Pinterest, where you can see the photo and then the drawing that came afterwards. So for Mucha, I think he's someone that has really inspired me and will continue inspiring me through the year. And I think he's someone that you guys should get to know as well. So obviously Mucha was my number one of the year. So moving into number 2, and if you guys have any comments or questions, I'll definitely do a Q&A at the end, kind of like what we did last week. I feel like that worked pretty well. And that way I can just get everything out all at once, and then we'll focus on the comments after. But I'll still look at the comments kind of as I'm talking to see if there's any ones that are fitting the conversation that I'm having at the moment. Mucha could fit in the 60s, and that's intended as a compliment. Oh, yeah. Okay, so the next one on my list, my number 2, and I guess from this point forward, they're not really in an order, but Mucha was definitely my number 1, and one that I wanted to talk about a little more heavily. Number 2 goes to Harry Clarke. This was another artist that I didn't even know existed until like a month ago, and it was posted on the Discord when someone posted that they bought a book of his that I think was intended for an Edgar Allan Poe book, and they shared the artist that did the illustrations for it. And when I looked more into it, I realized this is art that not only is down my alley, but it's so intriguing. And the words that I wrote for Harry Clarke were delicate, intricate, contrast, bold, bizarre, and then lastly, intriguing. The reason I like Harry Clarke's work so much is, I mean, there's a clear technical prowess behind it, but he also kind of has this weird sense of like confidence, where sometimes when I look at the faces in the book, because I like immediately got the book right after. So this is the Harry Clarke, an imaginative genius in illustrations and stained glass art, which is kind of strange. He does a lot of stained glass work, which I thought would intrigue me more, but honestly, the black and white stuff just pulls me in, and I am hooked. And I find it so intriguing, so I definitely would recommend this book if you're intrigued by Harry Clarke. But when I look at his stuff, let me pull down my little menu here. It is every single page that I would look through in this book was just so bold with contrast, where like not even just like darks, it would be black. It would be like solid black, and then these intricate lines of like pulling thin thread everywhere, and it would be connecting the hair of like a mermaid to a sculptor's sword. They're just very bizarre drawings. And I've always been intrigued by like macabre and like borderline creepy work, but this stuff really, I think, hits the mark in terms of being intricate and delicate while still being kind of creepy and terrifying in some ways. And that's why I look at his work and I want to do more stuff like this. in the sense that it isn't, once again, I'm pulling away from realism, and I'm definitely looking more at like iconography, where, well, thank you, Empty Scoo 77 for following. Well, even in this first image, this definitely heavily inspired the new drawing that I did. Let's see if this one. You can see it, that head thing. Some people call it the horizon crown. But essentially, that was very much inspired by the halo effect that he did on this right image. And then I like how the coat is very empty in this like bold shape. And then the bottom half, it creates this large textured mess of noise, essentially. But then when you look at it, it's so detailed and crafted with intention. Like there's these feathers and boas, and then there's these patterning of, it looks like 5 different layers, and it all comes together in the shape that works with the whole image. And he thought about the composition. And then there are other times, like the left image, it's so line heavy, yet it's purposeful in the sense that you can see the growth of this man, and however you want to interpret it. That's my favorite part. I feel like this can be interpreted so many ways, but for me, this is a man finding what would the key be in my mind would be like his purpose or his calling or his passion. And you can see like as he gets closer to it, he becomes larger. And then it's almost like I feel like a lot of times we're the person right here, where we're looking at this version of ourselves a few years from now or in the future that we want to be, but we're always looking towards getting there. I don't think any of us always feel like we're the one on the top. But that's just my interpretation, and I love this art because I think everyone could look at this and see something different. But it's so bold. And look at his hands. This is another thing. Mucha, I'm fascinated by his hands. Harry also does very intentional handwork. I don't think as much as Mucha, but like look at this hand here holding the sword, and look at the angle that he's going for. He has a hand holding out a chain, or a sword that's held by a chain, and it's creating these 3 lines that are pulling you into the top of the circle, and then your eye just flows around. And then not to mention the very creepy head that's being exaggerated and pulled out of the neck, which I find entrancing. Oh, we have a special visitor. Hello, Astrid. So this is our new emoji. This is Astrid the cat. Did you want to say hi? You just wanted some attention? Go figure. But the things that I want to talk more about with Harry is I think he's an artist that someone could write off very easily because it's so unrealistic and it's so bizarre. But I think he's someone that should be studied more, especially by younger artists, because I think too often younger artists are pulled to what's popular on social media, and most often it's things that are appealing, they're warm, they're inviting, they're oftentimes simple, and usually just a female that's really pretty. And I think while that has its place, I do think that art that really has power to it, and ones that should be discovered more and I think created more, are art that is maybe not the most inviting, and maybe does give you a different feeling rather than, oh, that's a pretty girl like. And if you see this image on the right, like this is kind of a very weird fairy, and I'm just so entranced by it because it's something I haven't seen before, where I think the pretty girl bus is something that I see on the daily. Oh, did I get a package?
Yeah, it's fragile.
Fragile?
Yes.
1 second.
I was just gonna wait. I didn't want to disturb.
I don't want it to be fragile.
I don't want to interrupt.
I don't think this is anything fun. Oh, I was kind of hoping this would be fun. Maybe not. But I think I could do a whole stream just on how I want to see more diversity in art from younger generations. I feel like it's been kind of replicated on a very fast notion that you want to get popular quickly on social media. So to do it, you do things that will appeal to people. I'm going to see what these are really quick. I don't know what... What are these? What is this? Who sent me mugs? Did I order these? Oh my god, these are from my mods on Discord. Dear Tim, we know you have an ever-growing community on Discord, but also at Von House. Hopefully this gift makes life a little easier and accommodating for new and existing resident. Much love. Your mods. Oh my god! You guys, this is so nice. Thank you. Oh my god. Oh my gosh. So these are... Oh, are these all the roommates? Wait. Because I'm assuming I'm the pig with the crown. Oh my god. And it came on the stream time. This is so bizarre. Sorry, I'm like distracting from the stream here. Oh my gosh. That's so cute. We mod these mugs for you. And then my mods. You guys are so nice. Oh my god. I like that all the animals have a crown too. I've unintentionally put myself in this box where everything has a crown. Mmm. Oh, you know what? Here, I'll show them off really quick. Oh, thank you guys so much. I'm rarely surprised. Oh, that was really nice. Thank you guys. I love this pig. This pig's wonderful. And I have like the smallest window to show off the mugs. And it's weird holding them because they're so cold. It's like holding ice right now. Oh, that was really nice. Thank you guys. Especially if any of the mods are in the chat right now. I'm pretty sure Ella is, and Tijal, and Corey. So thank you guys. That was really nice. I appreciate that. I'm very touched and very surprised. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was really cool. I'm going to keep these in front of me while I finish the stream here. That was really cool. Okay. So going back to Harry Clarke, he's just someone that I find entrancing because of how bizarre and weird he is. And I think it's someone that you guys should at least give a try looking at. Okay. And I should say, I'm starting this giant, where is it? This giant underwater drawing for my Patreon people. And this mermaid right here is the reason, it kind of pushed me over the edge of wanting to do a nautical scene. Because I don't know how easy you guys can see it, but the fin of the mermaid isn't really scales. It's all these intricate filigree shapes and line circles, and it's just like a mess of noise that's beautiful to look at, but it definitely represents a mermaid's scales without it actually being scales. And I thought, oh my god, I want to do that with all my mermaids from now on, is not to draw actual scales, but to have the illusion of scales through different small shapes and like clusters of filigree and things that I am actually interested in. And the hair that has all these lines, not only have I seen Harry Clarke do it a lot in his book, but then I'm seeing how he introduced or kind of influenced a lot of artists nowadays. Like you look at like Tran Nguyen, and she does a lot of these females with like a lot of hair that are just lines that kind of intersect, but they kind of create one bigger shape. And I'm realizing more and more that there's these hidden artists from yesteryear that are inspiring artists that I look up to that I was not even aware of. So that's something that I'm definitely interested in. And you'll probably see me do a lot more pieces with really long flowing hair that kind of have a similar nature, because I just think it's something that I want that look and that execution to be passed throughout the generations. And I feel like I've been given the baton and I'm like, okay, I got to draw something with that in it and then pass it. So I think my angel and my mermaids that I'll do will have that kind of over the top crazy flowing hair. Okay. Whoops, spoiler. My next one, actually, if you saw my Instagram, you already know that I spoiled that one. My next one is someone that is alive, and it's Hook Win Jin, or on DeviantArt, it's Hook with 5 O's. Hook is someone that I have followed for a long time now, but I feel like this year especially, I feel like I've kind of gone back to him. A lot of the artists that inspire me nowadays are definitely veering away from realism. Oh, now the cat's looking at the mugs. Yeah, you like the mugs, Astrid? Yeah, me too. And they're focused more on this very overly flowy, intricate, yet bold nature. And those are, when I listed all my 9 before I started the stream, I really noticed a pattern of what I was intrigued by and what was pulling me this year. So the words that I wrote for Hook were fantastical, dreamlike, entrancing, and then looming. And when I say looming, it's not really meant in like a happiness nature, like almost very melancholic, or like there's something looming on the horizon that is going to be devastating. And you'll see it more with, let me pull, especially like these drawings. Like it's like there's a stillness to it, like the darkest before the dawn type concept, yet they're powerful. And I like the idea of this is like a moment captured right before something devastating happens. And I don't know why that is the story that I create in my head when I look at his work, but that's the impression I'm getting, and it's leaving me with this very stillness idea. And the other thing that I really like about him is obviously not only is he fantastical, but I feel like he's setting and kind of paving the way for modern fantasy artists, where you see a lot of it being done at Square Enix with some of the artists that they've hired there, especially in the past like 5 years. You see some great art out of them, and I feel like they're really carrying the torch that Tetsuya Nomura started back in the late 90s with his concept art, and now they're just really pushing the creative limit of exploring other styles and other ways of rendering. And I think Hook is a good example of kind of setting the way for that exact look, where it doesn't have a very rendered feel. It feels very intentional with brush strokes and color. And even looking at some of his other pieces that maybe, well, thank you for following, that maybe aren't as fantastical, maybe rooted a little more in realism, like the right one here. It's so well handled. And I talked to Victor Maury, Moulin Blue on Instagram, and one of his favorite images is this the person wearing this solid black color tuxedo. And I feel like Hook is doing, oh, there's my receipt from Apple. Dismiss that. And I feel like I'm starting to understand why that's so powerful, because that black, it's almost like a black abyss, and it's sucking all of your attention to it. Even though there's this beautiful crafted scene around it, your eye keeps getting pulled into this dark tuxedo. And I love how contrasted this is without being obvious. I mean, the black is very obvious, but then you even look like the head. If you look at the way he rendered the male head to the female head, the male head has a lot more contrast just in terms of value. I'm not even talking of hue and saturation, just of value. He has this very muted light pink orange type color in the background, and he chose to have the male's face depicted very dark around the edges and the female's very light. So these are like little tricks to pull the viewer's eye in the places of the subject matter that you want them to be looking, rather than allowing it to wander as much. And I think having those little secret control methods in a piece are very smart, because then I feel like it was executed once again with purpose. And I just think he does a really good job with that. And then even looking at the first image here, oops, oh no, my horribly dirty background. I just drop everything on my desktop, and that's what consists of my desktop background. But where? Oh, there we go. Looking at this first one again, the hair goes into that very flowy, intricate mass shape, and I've noticed that with at least 4 artists in my list this past year, that obviously I want to create a lot of pieces with large hair and things that you can just tell were intentional. And I am very curious to see where he goes from here. I just found out today he has an art book, and I ordered it like immediately. I even have it rushed shipping, because this is a book that I wanted like a year ago, and it was only being sold in Korea. And then I just found out while looking for images for this stream specifically that it's been on this US store for about 6 months, and I just had no idea. So I got that book. I'll post it whenever I get it on my Instagram story of what I think of it. I'm sure I'll love it, and I'm very curious to see where he goes from here. So Hook is definitely an artist I think you should check out. Okay. My next artist on my list, the Hux Nihilius. I actually don't know how to pronounce it, but every time I see it, I do my best to attempt it. But this artist is insane. I actually think this is my number one artist for this year that's still living, and they probably have no idea that I'm obsessed with their work. Every time I see something new on Instagram, it's these pieces that I think are so bizarre and confident. And I always end up looking at them for like a minute while I'm scrolling on Instagram. Like it'll actually catch my attention enough to make me stop for a minute, which is rare on Instagram. And the words that I wrote down for this artist were confident and bold, intricate, there's a shape focused, and there's texture. And this, once again, going back into this very intricate line work that flows together to create this massive sum of a shape. This is another artist that does that type of technique, and I am along for the ride. I think this artist is only going to go up and up from here, and they're so confident in their decision making. It makes me look at sometimes the art that I do, and it pushes me to be more indulgent in breaking not only away from realism, but breaking away from something looking pretty. And I was talking to my roommates, specifically Sean, about this, on how even for my giant piece, I want it to be kind of like a Where's Waldo type piece where it's so noisy and busy and intricate and detailed that it's almost hard to look at. But kind of talking about like the Mucha things earlier, where you can tell it's good on a technical level, but it's so overwhelming that it's hard to look at for more than like 10 seconds without just, your brain kind of shutting off, being like, nope, too much to comprehend. And I like playing with that idea. And I feel like it's a new thing that's been introduced to me this past year. And there's another artist where there's always so much going on. It forces me to take a moment and really absorb what I'm looking at. I feel like this isn't an artist that I can just quickly look through and you just kind of get the gist of it right away. Even something that is considered probably more simplistic by their standards, I still look at, and it is intriguing for me to understand, like, what are all the shapes that I'm looking at? Is there an overall graphic shape that they were trying to create? Like some people maybe see a bird looking right, like this being the eyeball and this being the beak. And I like that play, that storytelling nature ability without it being intentional, but it's so graphic and intricate in nature that it allows the viewer to kind of interpret it however they want. And I just think this artist, here's a really good example of the hair that creates a cluster. I think this is an artist that I'm going to be looking up to for a while now, especially in the new year. And it's someone that I definitely want you guys to check out. I feel like they are not as recognized or given enough attention as they should be. I know I have a pretty specific taste, but I feel like this artist can speak to anyone. And I'm just so mesmerized sometimes when I look at their work, and I hope that you guys are too. Even like, look at these swords. Like every single one feels unique, and it feels like there's a story just behind the sword. Like not even the character, but the swords themselves. Like I want to know why does this one look the way it does? Is that a little pig demon in the middle here? Look at this sword that has like a bow on the top, yet it looks like it's made of rock and thorns sticking out. Like they're just very small decisions that were made that I appreciate. So I just included a bunch of their work as examples. So that is something else that I think is inspiring for me to see, is an artist that is confident. And pretty much all the artists on this list, actually looking at it, all these artists are confident. Maybe one or two are still like finding themselves, but I still appreciate them. But besides that, they're just confident. They don't care if they're appealing. They care if it's speaking the voice, their true voice, as loud as possible. And that's not to say it's like this obnoxious squeal of like someone just like putting their true voice out there, but they're just saying it loud and proud and confident. They're not stumbling on their words. They're not saying like or a lot. And when I hear their pieces, because I like to speak in metaphors and analogies, but when I hear them, it's very confident. And you can just tell they're well-spoken. And this is an artist that I would definitely go check out. Okay, moving on. My next artist on this list is someone that I've actually been inspired by in the past many times, but I feel like this year it kind of revamped and went back in there, and that is Jeremy Bastian. If you don't know who Jeremy Bastian is, he is a pretty good line artist. He works, I thought it was primarily with a Micron pen, but I found out after talking with him a few times, it's actually a brush. It's a Micron brush that he works with. And this piece is actually, do I have it? I do. I actually bought one from him, and he even signed it because he's such a good guy. But this piece is one that I can look at, and there's so many intricacies everywhere. And they're really small decisions too. You know what? I'm going to see if I can get you guys to see. Like, look at, from a distance, the very right side just looks like a, what is this? I think this is a lobster antenna. But then if you really look at it, there's two crowns on it. It turns into a flower, and there's like this little baby cherub hugging the top of it. There are so many details hidden within this drawing that I'm literally blown away every time I look at it. But this is a great example of a piece that's so intricate that after like 10 seconds of looking at it, you almost need to look away because it's too hard to digest. And that's really my goal, is to create a piece that is similar in nature to these artists that I'm looking up to that are doing something along that. And this, I find it so appealing right now. But the other reason why he's so great is he works, the words that I wrote down for Jeremy, I'll say that first, were intricate, clever, resourceful, detailed, and has an uneasy flow. I can definitely tell he understands composition and flow, and yet he's willing to break these rules. Let me show you. Where's a good one where it feels really broken? Or even with this one, he could easily have pulled the braids out in different directions a little bit more just to give more of like a swoopy nature to it. But he kept it more constrained. Oh, hello, cat. You are very attention needing today. You beautiful thing. And I feel like what Jeremy does is he plays with expectation and then he spins it in his own way, which I find intriguing. So the reason I had this image as the first one is because I also have these close-up shots. And you can see why I wrote down resourceful, because if there is even a margin of paper that he can add detail to, he will use it wisely. And even looking at this guy's hat, you can see even like the middle parts of the medallion or the key or the crown, he's adding another crown within a crown. And then looking at his suit of armor, there's literally a lion head armor with a keyhole under it with this monkey coming out of it underneath. It's very well told if you're taking the time to listen to what he's having to say. And here's another image of the pirate girl in the front of that same larger image. And look how many little things that may have gotten lost if you didn't really take the time to look at it. And even like the little note that this guy is holding, he actually took the time to write legible writing on it. Or like this deer has a seashell double earring. And even looking at if you look, oh, hi, baby. From far away, you can't really see it, but there's like this giant stage that's behind the girl in the front. And then if you look at the image close up, you can see even in that stage, he took the time to add and like imply detail. Like you can kind of see a skeleton rib cage and here's some filigree added to it. Cat, you're going to fall. What are you doing? And for very obvious reasons, I'm inspired to hit his level of craftsmanship in understanding detail and how to be resourceful with the real estate you're given on the paper, essentially. And this was another example that I want to show of how he uses his space very wisely. So on a book opening, he made this image that fit really nicely on a spread. So he knew that the opening of the book would be in the center. So he made this very extended hair image that if you open the book, some of that middle part might get lost, but he did it in a way that it wouldn't really matter because the main meat of both images are on separate sides, and then the middle is just connecting them. And obviously the stringiness of his hair always intrigued me, and it is totally going away from realism, and it definitely plays more with shape language and the flow of the design. But his flow, the reason I wrote uneasy flow is because I feel like it's not this very pretty, elegant, filigree flow that I've been very attracted to my whole life. And I like how he kind of does it, but then breaks it. It's never like a perfect circle swoop and it has that filigree shape to it. It always like has a hint of it, but then he has like a flat line, or then it'll like veer the other direction. And I kind of like that he just does not care that it's not this perfectly pretty filigree symbol, that it's more of his own. Cat, I need it. Let's just go down. Let's go down. Here we go. Yeah. I'll play with you later, I promise. And if you look at the octopus on the left side here, let me see if I can move. Is this the image? Okay. I'm going to move the octopus to the front. So even here, this always intrigued me. I feel like he's been doing this a lot more recently, where he has these like white blank negative space shapes included in his pieces, and I find that very intriguing. But even with, do you want to say it? Do you need that attention today? Astrid, world, Astrid, and down you go. You can see how in the tentacle shape language, they're not these very pretty, swooping, perfectly golden ratioed out. They have this very broken, like, uneasiness to them. And it's very contrasty. So, like, I guess this figure 8 one here would probably be the most fluid. But then the rest of the tentacles, when you look at them, they're very bent. And they have this very almost macabre, scary look to them. And then if you look at the cello itself, there's not only is he playing it with swords, which I find kind of funny and totally impractical, but there is a very intricate design of the queen riding a unicorn with filigree pattern all over it. And it's something that you wouldn't notice unless if you like really took the time to look closer. So Jeremy Bastian is an artist that has been inspiring me for a couple years now, but I think this year, again, he kind of found his way back into my inspiration wheelhouse because of the direction I feel like I'm going into, and I feel like he's definitely speaking on that same level. So Jeremy Bastian's one I would definitely recommend. I bought his Cursed Pirate Girl book a long time ago, and if you think it's crazy that he does all these illustrations as detailed, you should see the pages of his book. Every single one is so intricate and detailed that I find it surprising that this isn't more well known, because it is phenomenal. And when someone takes the amount of time to create a book that has so much craft and intricacies, I think it should be more like common knowledge. But I think until that day comes, I'm just going to be one of his biggest advocates, and I want to promote him as much as possible. And not only do I think this is great, but then he released 2 little sketchbooks, which also show, even in like little sketches, how crazy detail-oriented he is. You see, even with like what would be considered, I'm sure by his standard, a simple sketch, is actually also super intricate and weird. And like, look at the hair of the pirate. Yeah, that is the hair. They're flowing in all these weird directions, and it's like this broken, beautiful flow. And I find him very intriguing. And after talking with him a few times, he's also a super genuine, nice guy. and he undersells his stuff, in my opinion. Like all of the book, it was like $20, and then the print was like 25 or something. And he even like hand draws a little drawing on every print he sells at cons. And I think he is crazy, but I also find him super inspiring and motivating. So he's a great artist to follow, and someone that if you can have the chance to meet him, do it. He's full of wisdom and is very willing to share it. Okay. The next artist on my list here is Toma Wagner. Now, this is an artist that probably many of you don't know. Yes, this one. So this is an artist that I met at New York Comic Con, and I had no idea who she was before this event either. I was figuring out, should I say either or either, but either sounded more enhanced. But I want to take a moment for you guys to look at this drawing and just tell me what you interpret from looking at this. What do you see when you look at this drawing? And there's a reason for that, so I'm going to give you just like 10 seconds here. Astrid is the reason why I come to these streams. Me too. I never thought I would love cats, and I love Astrid. And Mushi. Actually, Key's cat's amazing too, but Astrid seems to be more playful and youthful, I guess. Well, thank you, Augustus, for following. Okay, so the reason I wanted you to take some extra time to look at this image specifically is because there is clearly a deeper meaning behind this image. And after looking, I literally was at her booth, but she was talking with some other people. So I was just staring at all of her prints that she had for sale. And I actually ended up buying this one. And it's funny because I never buy fan art, but this is technically a depiction of The Little Mermaid. And all of a sudden you look at this piece again and everything starts to make sense. How she loses her voice, represented by a microphone, and you see it turn into like this clammy shell. And then she loses her mermaid fin and becomes human. She has legs. And I just think this type of storytelling is so unique and so intriguing that I want to know more. And she doesn't have that much art, or at least art that I was able to find from her website or social media, or even at her booth. She only had like 10 or 12 prints. But I am so curious to see where they go from here. And the words that I wrote for hers were curious, puzzle solving, purposeful, again, graphic, and bold. So looking at her other pieces here, you can see how there's elements that she's choosing to include. And if there's an element that she wants to be more of a vocal point, she'll pull it out in a very graphic context and make it prominent, make it known. And I think that's very interesting to do when it not only does it break from realism, but then it becomes almost like a marketing or like an advertisement piece, but you're still in the context of a almost fantastical in nature art piece. And it's very strange, and I find it very intriguing. So then looking at each of her pieces, you try to make sense of what is going on here. I feel like every piece, every drawing is a puzzle, and it's up to you as a viewer to solve it. But the big riddle is usually there's no end overall picture. There's no, puzzle that's actually being completed. It's you interpreting it and telling a story in your mind of what you're seeing. So even this one, like there's numbers on the piece. And then my initial idea is, okay, well, there's 6 numbers. They probably represent the 6 items down here. And then you start to look like, okay, well, number 2 is this bottle looking thing. But number 2 down here is a pencil. And you're like, well, are they out of order? And then you start matching. And then it's like, well, are they backwards? And you're like, wait, 5 is here. And that's represented here. And I just feel like it's a mystery. Like it's a puzzle. It's very intriguing. I feel like I could just ramble about this artist because I find them so intriguing. So intriguing. And here was another image. Oh, Astrid is back. I thought you went upstairs, my love. This is another one that actually is supposed to be a fan art piece, and after you look at it for a little bit, you might be able to decipher it that this is the Emperor's new clothes. And I like the weird ideas being represented here with like the masks in the background, the mask being highlighted in its own box down here, and this boy that's saying something, but it has no content. There's no speech within the bubble. And I think that could be something to be said about like society being silent, even though they're all pointing the finger. There's so much that can be interpreted with her pieces, and I find them entrancing, honestly. And then here's the last one I have from her. I believe this was something about doll parts. And when I look at it, I think more of like flexibility and rotation. So I'm very curious to see what this artist does moving forward, but it definitely caught my attention, especially the Little Mermaid one, because I was staring at that for such a long time. And when I finally saw the title of it was The Little Mermaid, I looked at it with this like fresh pair of eyes in this new context that I was given, and it just made everything, it just felt like the puzzle was complete. And even though I was unable to complete it myself, I did my best, and I created my own kind of story from it, which, give or take, is that better or worse knowing the actual meaning behind it? But it was something that I found very intriguing. And the other thing about her other print, I bought the Emperor New Clothes one, is I don't know how well you can see it on the stream, but it's actually transparent. It has this, not completely transparent, I shouldn't say that. It has a frosted transparency to it. So like light can be reflected through. And just everything about her art I found so intriguing. Not only the storytelling ability, but her prints themselves. Because even this one is like a canvas print, which you don't really see often at all at conventions. Okay, so that is Toma Wagner. The next one on this list is Demizu Posuka. And he is an artist that my friend Deandra Pop introduced me to. And he is someone that is very playful. I look at his stuff and it feel like it's heightened anime, if I could describe it in like a quick blurb. So the words that I wrote when I think of Demizu is fun, playful, creative, storytelling, and an eye-wandering master. So when I look at his works, there's a very obvious story behind what he's creating. And he wants you to look behind the pieces to see what story unfolds. And usually it's not as, I mean, it still can be interpreted differently, but usually there's somewhat of a larger idea that he's wanting you to grasp. And even with like this one, the girl's leaving a city, and the way that I interpret it is the city only has a limited amount of time before its inevitable downfall. And I like that it's represented in an hourglass, and it's only a matter of time. And I think a lot of people, especially younger people, feel that when they leave their small hometowns, that it won't last forever. And it's something that is ticking away, or in the time of an hourglass. And the image on the left, she's having this motorcycle, and he does such a good job with water. But she's riding this motorcycle across this water, and underneath it, you see all the fish and you see this underwater city. But then the reflection is very interesting, because at first I thought it wasn't actually facing back toward the direction she's going, but it is actually a true reflection. But I like the idea that when I look at that piece, I almost feel like I'm riding the motorcycle and I'm riding across the water, which I find obviously pretty playful and fun. So the other pieces that he does, I think he does a great job with feathers and wings and understanding the shape language of things that have feathers, or directing the eye. And with the right image, it's very more almost obvious with the spiral going on. But there's so much to look at, and it allows you to like have fun while you're discovering new things in the piece. Like obviously the intention is to look at the kids in the front, but then as you look down, he's pulling up this girl that may have been drawing, because down here there's some crayons and paper and a little stuffed animal. And that's really cute. And the more you look through it, all of a sudden here's another older, I mean, still a kid, but older kid holding a lantern and pulling another child. And I don't know if this is supposed to, and then same up here, if this is supposed to represent like the older siblings kind of lighting the way, even though they might not know specifically where they're going. I like the interpretations that his art can make you think, but a lot of the times we as viewers don't take the time to really look and analyze art. I feel like especially with social media, we're conditioned to look through images really quickly and try to like eat it up, devour it as soon as possible, like within a second or two. And I always try to slow down, especially with the artists that are more intricate or more detailed, because they're reminding us to take the time to take a moment, pause, and reflect on what exactly is being said here, rather than just dismissing it as good, liking, and then moving on. Like really let it absorb into your conscious so that when you're creating art, you can pull from it, you know? Or at least that's just how I feel with how we look and reference art. And then here's just a good another one where she's sleeping on top of the water. And I like that she was reading a book. So I like the idea that she fell asleep reading, and it might have been the story about this underwater tale. And because she was reading while she was going to bed, now she's in the slumber. And that's why her hair is being pulled into it, is because now she's dreaming of the story that she was just reading. And I find that it's a very cute, playful concept. And even like the ones on the left, you see this ink seller. He just sells ink, but he has like every size available. And it's a very cute cart. He's really good at telling a story that is playful with an image that allows you to wander within it. So Demi is one of those artists that I feel like is also not as well known, but I definitely think should check him out. So he has a book called Pone, and I found this book at Anime Central this past year. It is filled page to page with just glorious art. There's very little text, so if you're someone that likes art books with mostly art like I do, this is definitely a great book to check out, and I would highly recommend it. Okay, we only got 2 more here. Next on my list is Tobias Kwan. Now, he's another one that I've been following for quite a long time. And actually, I won't show the traditional first. I'll show the digital. So he's someone that, and Key really likes Tobias too, TK as we call him. But he's known definitely, at least from what I remember, more for his color digital stuff. And when you look at them, they're very strong. They're very almost haunting, I think would be a good word to describe them. But the other words that I wrote for Tobias when I think of him are confident, bold, contrasting, and playful. And you'll understand playful when I get to the traditional stuff. But here, you can even see like with his color choices or with the way that he's choosing to leave it unrendered, in especially the cases on the bottom 2 profiles, is that he isn't afraid to experiment. And he's almost like looking, like even within the finished piece, he's still looking for it to be experimental or like trying something new. And then I feel like with his traditional stuff, actually these are the newer ones, but even in the older ones, he used to like draw on cardboard boxes and things. I just felt like it was a very, clever, weird idea to do this. And his execution is just so excellent. And when I look at his work, it definitely feels very inspired by Tetsuya Terada, and Ketsuya. And there's just this freedom looking at his pieces where it's okay if there's this jumbled mess, and then you have like this very bold negative space of a character and a subject matter. And I like the idea to play with that more. And it's something that I heard, I think it was a couple years ago, where apparently in Eastern art, the characters themselves, like the skin tone and the body, are very simple, almost like no shading at all. But then what they're wearing or the armor and what's around them is very intricate and bold. Where apparently Western art has the characters be very bold and gritty and a lot of rendering, but then what they're wearing or things around them are very simple. So it's a very contrasted idea. And I think especially with TK, you see definitely the first of being the skin and the subject matter of the character being very simple, but then the clothing, what they're wearing, the noise of it all is very intricate and well detailed. So TK is a very prominent artist for I think a lot of people, and especially a lot of traditional people, and it almost feels very reflective of James Jean as well as Katsuya Terada. And then here's his more recent traditional stuff. He's been using this red pen a lot more. And I look at these things and I just see a very playful nature. I see him not caring if the proportions are perfect. And it's these type of artists that inspire me to trust my intuition more. I think a lot of us have an issue where we need it to feel technically sound at all times. But looking at this type of art, it's like, you know what? It's okay if they're not super beautiful or pretty by an industry standard. Like, let's be playful. Let's add noise. Let's have cables. Let's have a bunch of arms grabbing from nowhere. Let's have all these intricate shapes. And I like that he's playing with that because I think I see more of this experimental side kind of finding its footing, and it's really speaking volumes to me. And even with the digital, I think that while these are strong, I think the traditional stuff just elevates his creativity even more. I think partially because of the time that he's able to give to them. Well, thank you, Hone Peach, for following. Okay. Now, the very last one. Now, this is someone that I definitely have known for a while, kind of similar to Jeremy Bastian. But I feel like, especially in the last year, I really looked at his art and I've learned from it. So this should come as no surprise to many of you that know my art, that I am also very heavily inspired by James Jean. And this is an artist that is a powerhouse in the industry today. And can I just say what an honor it is to live? I mean, obviously Mucha and Clarke are no longer with us, but the other artists on this list are living, working artists today. Like, we're alive while they're working and creating new things, and we get to be around for that. I find that very exciting. And James Jean, I think, is one of the top masters living today. I'd put him in the same realm of like Alan Williams. But even the thing where, even though I think Alan Williams is like a living god in the graphite world, James Jean is pushing the limit of what an artist can do. Because not only is he, and I'll talk about this, I have a slide just for like what he's doing. But not only is he pushing the limit in his art, but he's pushing the limit of what he can be incorporated into, whether it's fashion or stained glass or embossing or movies. And fashion. Can I represent fashion one more time? Because he is really pushing the inclusion of the art world into these other more separated barriers, and I think he's breaking them down. So James Jean, I used to know him for more of this kind of stuff, where they were very weird, very macabre, and obviously that's right down my alley because it's executed really well too. But nowadays, I think most people know him more for things like this, and it's definitely more clean, which, give or take, I definitely like the more textured stuff like this, but I still can very much appreciate what's going on here because the flowiness, almost like the goopiness of it really, is so entrancing that it's hard for me to look away. And the words that I wrote down for James Jean were influential, bizarre, fearless, bold, strange, and powerful. He really is an artist that I think everyone should look up to in some form or fashion. Even if his style may not be your taste, I think the way that he's breaking these barriers of what could be expected of a modern artist living today can do, I think is very inspiring, and I think he's kind of paving the way for a lot of artists moving forward. And a lot of artists that not only I look up to, talking with them, they also reference James Jean a lot. And even talking with Peter Morbacher, who does Angelarium, he definitely looks up to James Jean and what he's doing. And let me pull up another slide here. And when I look at his stuff, it punches you in the face. It takes like a moment to recognize what exactly is going on. And oh, did it get cropped off? Hold on, I just saw the comment really quick. It's James Jean though. He's someone that you should already be following. But if you're not, I'll put it in the comment section really quick. Oh, Sharth already did. Thank you. So yeah, his stuff punches you in the face, and it takes you like a moment to really look at what you're looking at and decipher what the hell is going on. And that partially of why I love him. But the second reason is his flow is so bizarre and so different, but so clean. Especially his flowy lines. I mean, you can see it more in the unicorn, where like it melts into the floor, and even like these plants all have this very bulbous shape to it. And I feel like he's very good at creating this very bulbous, flowy shape pattern. But then when you look at stuff like this, where it's like introducing a bunch of texture and almost surrealism, really, and then in the background, another layer of texture. There's just a lot going on, so it's hard to decipher sometimes, but I like that because it's like puzzle solving. But then here's a good example of like the goopy flow, and he's kind of made this into like an industry standard. I see so many artists now trying to reflect and capture that same type of movement and flow in their own work, that it definitely can be, given the credit right back to James Jean, because he's really paving the way in that sense. So when I look at like these type of pieces, these are where he's so fearless. He doesn't care that it's weird or that people won't get it. Or even like this man sitting on what looks like flat noodles, and he has a bunch of puncture wounds with him bleeding out, and then it's raining. It's just, there's so much weirdness going on. And look at his knees. They're like over accentuated with how old and wrinkly they are. I know it might be hard to see on the screen, but his pieces are just so fearless. He doesn't care that they might not be the most pleasant to look at. And then the one on the left with this mother feeding, or I don't even know if it's the mother, but this presumably woman and her baby feeding out of this duck head. Or actually, these are, what are those mythical creatures called? I can't think of it at the moment. But they're eating noodles out of his head, and I just find it so entrancing. And then if you look at the way that he renders flowers even, sometimes it's a very soft, muted shading like the ones up here, but then the ones behind her have this very almost fashion textile look to it, where it has these reverse gradients of white to color, and having them like so close to each other, yet it still work as a piece, I think is so entrancing. And obviously the little skeleton. I love Halloween, so anything that kind of veers in that direction, I'm attracted to. But the pieces that are so overwhelming and bold, I think the reason so many artists look up to him nowadays is because his line work is so clean. It's almost kind of bizarre how clean it is, considering how noisy and complicated his pieces look. But then when you really like section them off, they're very clean. They're almost soft in nature. They never have a lot of sharp triangle angles. I think one of his biggest things, and the more that I look at and study his art, is rather than having a point, he'll make it a curve. So that's one way that he creates this flow that's like never ending, is because there's never a point to end on. It's always pushing and pulling you back in a different direction. I think the water here is a really good representation of that. And even down here, the keyboard that if that's how it's supposed to be represented, that she's playing on, none of them have these sharp edges. They're still curved, even though they're supposed to be these more blocky figures. So his work is can we talk about the color for just 1 second? His color choices are so bold and so opposing and violent even. There are some, these colors I would consider more violent, where these are more fantastical, more inviting. But then he'll do something like, where was that? These, where they're almost hard to look at because of how contrasting and powerful they are in nature. yet they're inviting in a way that's like almost, I don't want to compare it to like someone being like, hey, you want to take this mind explosion drug that will take you to new places and see the world in a different light and color. And even though at first you're like, no, I definitely don't want any of that, but they're like, but what if, can I get a little peek though? And I feel like James Jean kind of gives us that peek. So the last reason I find him to be such an influential artist in today's standard is not, I didn't even include any of the fashion stuff, but he's very included with like Prada and very popular fashion lines today. But he also, like, look at this stained glass piece. He's looking at different mediums and he's executing them so well. This stained glass piece, I think, is excellent. But then the way that he's doing his prints, he's doing like this embossing technique. And he, you know, at first he was doing this gold embossing, or no, first he was doing a very plain embossing. He would just, you know, press the paper to form this image. And at the bottom of every print would have like a unique little image on it, which I thought was very cool. But then he started doing this thing where it was like this metallic gold look. And obviously, I'm intrigued by that. But that was kind of setting the industry standard of like what a print could even be. And then he started including like this holographic look and embossing. I know you can't really see it on the bunny as well as I can on my screen, but it's holographic. And then Gawky bought a print from James Jean, and the whole print had these little sections of embossing and of the like, little holographic inclusions. And he's really elevating what it means to be an artist today, not only in the way that he's doing his work, which is very intriguing, but the way that he's presenting it. So I think he's definitely one of the top influential artists living today, and is someone that you guys should be following. But also, the reason I put him on my list specifically is because of that flow and that almost overtly unrealistic sense of the subject matter and the way that they interact with one another. So it's something that I'm going to look more into moving forward, and he is someone that I think will inspire me the rest of my life. So James Jean, you made it on my list for 2018, and I think you guys should check him out too. So really quick, I'm going to do a quick recap of the 9 artists that I think are my most influential for me in 2019, and I hope that maybe I introduced you guys to someone new, but then I'll open this to a Q&A, and we'll have a little conversation before I end off this stream. So the first one was Mucha. Mucha, I think, will definitely be a player in my life the rest of my year, but especially this past one really pushed me away from realism in a sense, while still capturing realism in some fundamental ways, but pushing to more of a iconography look. Then we had Harry Clarke, who is very macabre and strange and intricate and bizarre, and it's something that I am very intrigued by, and I think I want to move into that direction more. Hook Wenjin, I think his work, I think, just inspired me more on like a fantastical level and just reminds me to be free. And I think his work always feels very free to me. The next one we had was the Hawks Nihilus. And this is just an artist. I really think this is my favorite artist of last year. I find them so entrancing. And I think that flowy, I think you saw it in a few of my examples today, that flowing line work, usually to represent hair. You're going to see a bit more of that from me this year. The next one, Jeremy Bastian, one that's, you know, always a good inspiration to look at for me, but reminds me to be less inviting in a way. And I know that might sound like an insult, but for me, it's like a highest compliment, because when you get to a point where you're so confident in your work that you're not even allowing yourself to care if other people like it. If you like it, that's what matters. And when I look at his work, I can just tell he is in love with what he's doing. The next one was Toma Wegner. And I think she just reminds me that not all art has to be cut and dry and easy to interpret and understand. I think having art that is more like a puzzle, I find super intriguing. And it's something that I've never really thought of doing for myself. But who knows, with this new year, maybe I do have more graphic elements in my work that definitely separate it again from realism, but then there's more of that storytelling nature behind it as well. Okay, next, Demizu Bozuka, and I love saying his last name, Pozuka. Sounds like bazooka, but his stuff is so playful, and it might be bizarre for someone that looks at my art to think that I'm inspired by someone that is a very playful anime artist. But when someone just feels that free and that energetic in their work, it's hard for me not to take notice, because I'm not just someone that is inspired strictly by realism work. I look at art like this, and I can feel the nature and the energy behind it, and it feels fun. And it's like a party that I want to go to, and everyone's just having a good time. They're playing board games or they're playing video games, and no one's yelling or shouting. Everyone's just like having like storytelling. I don't know what it is about his work, but it always just makes me feel warm, and it feels very inviting in a good way. Like, I don't think this is inviting in the sense that I normally use that word. I think oftentimes for me, inviting means like a pretty girl with just like a bust. And I think it's very inviting because that's what people are almost expected to like on social media. And I think I want that trend to shift away from that, because I think we're telling a lot of younger artists, if you want to be popular, if you want to make money, if you want to be an independent artist, you have to follow A, B, and C. And I feel like A is draw just pretty girls in profile. And I think we can do more as that as a community of artists. The next one was Tobias Kwan. He is someone that I'm very intrigued to see where he grows from here. I feel like him and I are similar ages, and you can just see that we're very much influenced by people that we look up to and that are older, and that we're finding our own style and our voice, and we are just pumping away trying to find that. And it's very motivating for me to have other people, not only my age, but I guess people that I can just sense are hungry for it, that are hungry for more, to see what they're capable of, and they're willing to push themselves to find that. And I think he is one of those artists that I'll definitely stay tuned to see where he goes in future years. And lastly, let me end off with the horse. No, let me end off on, we'll do the chaos. We'll end on the chaos. James Jean, and he's someone that I think will forever be remembered, and I think it's an artist that we need to just be in tune with, because I think he's kind of paving the way for the industry standard. He's literally like raising the bar of what is capable of us and what we're able to do graphically and the way we present things. Okay, those are my 9 artists that influenced me the most in 2018. So I'm going to go ahead and make this bigger here. And then let's have a quick Q&A before we cut this off. Oh, hold on. I'll edit that really quick. So while I'm editing this, if you guys have any questions, I know I've already seen a few, and I know I missed a lot during the talk, but I will do my best to answer them before the stream ends here. Okay, a little blurry, and don't mind my crazy hair. It's doing its own thing today. Okay. Boogle says, "Hi, Tim. Just catching the end of your stream. Literally just woke up from a dream I visited the Von house." Well, I hope that was a pleasant visit for you. I thought there might be a ghost wandering around here. That's why Astrid was going crazy. You know what? I'll read it from the side here. I'll scroll up. I know there are a lot of questions here. Oh, Zad, I like your interpretation. This is like, don't listen to modern gadgets, listen to nature. Ooh. See, like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, that's the kind of storytelling ability that I think more artists should aspire to be, rather than it being so cut and dry. But I mean, that's my opinion, but I find that so intriguing. Bloom Sage says, "I feel like you'd enjoy spiritual artworks like Alex Gray and some Buddhist focused art. It really plays with the sense of ordered chaos that pulls you in through its busyness, beautiful rendering. Let me go look it up. Actually, if there's artists that you can kind of tell fit the trend that I've been focusing on in this stream and even past ones, please put them not only in this stream, but maybe in the Discord channel so that other people can also check it out if they missed the stream. Because I think sharing the artists that inspire us, and especially ones that I may not have known about before, is a great way to broaden your visual library. And Harry Clarke, the number 2 on my list, was basically introduced to me on Discord specifically. So if they didn't put that book on Discord, I wouldn't have known him and I wouldn't have been inspired to do like this giant piece. So you never know where that initial suggestion may lead to. Oh yeah, Alex Gray is definitely there's a lot going on, a lot of little intricate details. It's definitely intriguing for me. Oh wait, no, I've seen this before. Where did I see this? I think I was talking to Key about him. I think his stuff is it's fun to look at. It's very fun. I think his color use for me is a little heavy at times. I think the saturation is a little too much everywhere. I definitely like artists that have like a play of either mostly saturated with like pockets of unsaturation or mostly unsaturated with pockets of saturation, where I feel like he is just like, nope, everything's saturated. And I mean, it works for his art. I think it speaks to the nature of what his art says, but not my specific favorite. But I do like and it can appreciate what he does with his work, which is very obvious that it takes a lot of time. Oh, you know what? I think I did do it is Hook Woo Jin. I'm sorry. I did the handle wrong on him. I think I was typing too fast on that one. But yes. And I think because I follow him on DeviantArt as Hook, that I think that's what I've been calling him for so long. Hemlock. Hey, Hemlock, how you doing? Says, I get that feeling from a lot of Magnola's work in Hellboy. I can definitely see the inspiration there. And Magnola is an artist that I think is also kind of paving the way for especially sequential artists. He's kind of showing how this very graphic nature, almost paint bucket way of doing your colors and have it work so well, which I think hasn't really been done before in the industry. Oh, my mods are amazing. You guys rock. Change of plans unboxing stream. Yeah, you guys are funny. Oh, here, you know what? I'll scroll back down. I bet the questions are coming. Oh yeah, they are. Okay. Carcat says, "Are you ever gonna do a feature of art you like from, like people from your Discord or in general who follow your art, like people from your fans who managed to inspire you?" Possibly, yeah. I mean, if you guys know Melpa, she was definitely one that I first was introduced to on the streams and has really gone on and done some amazing work. I think it's Melpa Draws on Instagram. I still look at her stuff and am inspired. So Melpa's great. Who's the other one that comes to mind? Miss Chibi artist, Maria. I think she's one of those artists that every year I see growth and progress and I like the direction they're going in. So I'm just looking at their stuff being like, yes, yes, yes. There was another one. Oh, GK from the UK. They do sculpting stuff. She's the one that did my red bust that I keep on my desk. And she sent Key one of the drawings Key did last year. And it is so good. It's so good. And I just feel like they're an artist that will only get better and better. And I'm very curious to see where they go from here. Luva says, oh, and Luva. Luva is actually another artist that I think I really like the direction they're going in, and I want to see more from them. So Luva, I think your work's great. And I mean, even I don't want to like, shout out just to my mods, but there's definitely some of my mods. I won't pick favorites, but I'm definitely looking at their work being like, all right, I see where you're going. Keep going. I like the progress. But Luva says, Wiley Beckert has a huge inspiration for me also. Yep. Wiley was one of Sean's biggest inspirations for a while, and we got or we've met her a couple times, but then we got her art books and the cards, and her stuff is just, it's excellent. She's going to be one of those that will definitely be remembered for being original, especially listening to her talk about how no one would hire her because her style was too, almost like too distinct, if you want to call it that. And then kind of her carving her own path because she couldn't follow the ones with the art that she wanted to do. So she made her own. And like, what an inspiration that story is. So a lot of love for Wiley. If you don't know who Wiley Beckert is, definitely go check her out. She's very great with shape and design and playful compositioning. So I think she should be on everyone's inspiration list, at least a little bit, in my opinion. Bloom Sage says, I'm glad you like him. Also, how do you handle pursuing ambiguous concepts, but also being able to communicate it technically? So I guess here's something that I want to, and I'm sure I'll have a deeper conversation in my Discord at some point about this. Like with my large drawing, imagine if there was a piece where the intention wasn't to be inviting. What if your whole intention behind the piece was to create this very heavily intricate noise that when someone looks at it, they know that it's technically good, but it's such an eyesore, but it's like hard for them to call it bad. And I think that's such a weird, intriguing concept, and one that I think Jeremy Bastian, James Jean, a lot of the artists that I talked about today, they play with that idea, and I want to try my own attempt at that. So I think with this drawing that I'm doing, it won't be something where it's like focal point here, things surrounding it, pointing in that direction, very obvious compositioning. Like, what if it was the opposite? What if it was literally a Where's Waldo of beautiful detail? And when you look at it, you're almost like smitten with, what the hell am I looking at? And that's kind of the direction I want to go with this piece. So who knows? I don't know exactly where I'm going to go with it, but that's my initial idea. I'm a little nuts, so I think it kind of works with my nature. And I like getting excited about something and then following that direction immediately, because I've learned from the past that when your gut and your intuition tells you something, you follow that. Because I've only seen success when I do that. And even in the failures that I've had following my gut, I still consider it a success because I followed my intuition. And even though it didn't work out, I learned from it. And I learned what not to do. And it was a very clear answer from that point forward. And I think too many artists, especially nowadays, they're so scared of following their gut that they try to do what they think will be popular or well-liked. And then, bringing up Wiley Beckert's a great example because her art wasn't liked by creative directors. They thought it was too unique, too distinctive, and that Wiley wouldn't be able to fit and blend in with the rest of the art team. So then Wiley took it into her own hands, and she was like, you know what? I'm going to follow my own voice and see where that leads me, and I'm going to go as hard as I can. And she's now a very successful artist. And I think primarily because of that decision to not listen to other people and to follow her own heart. So something to think about. And I'm not set in stone with this piece. I almost don't even want to do thumbnails for it. Like, that's how much of intuition I want to trust with this piece, which I know is breaking everything that I learned on how to create art. But I think it would be a really interesting concept to dive down and see where it leads me. Cactus says, quick advice for drawing profile view. Working on one right now. Keep the facial proportions in the lower third, or the most left if you're drawing a left facing person. Have it be like in the first third of the subject matter. I think too often people pull the eyes too far back when really eyes are not in the middle of the head. They're definitely more on the front. And then the ears, I think, are also very important. Like looking at my head in profile, you can see how the ears are actually more pulled back as well. Too often I think we push it right in the center, but more often than not, it's actually more toward the back as well. So that'd be my quick advice on drawing a profile. And maybe, you know what, I can do a stream on that next week, because in 2 weeks we're doing a critique stream. So if you want your work critiqued by me, you can submit your pieces to the Discord channel below. And I'm going to choose probably about, I want to say like 8 of them, 6 or 8, and I'll critique them live. And I've done them in the past. I'm not doing this to be bringing you down or tearing you down. I really believe in constructive criticism. And if you don't know what that looks like, come to the stream. I want to show what a positive experience critiquing can be while still being useful and hopefully learning something from it moving forward. I think too often people are afraid to tell artists the technical shortcomings, but since there's no connection between me and you personally, it's definitely pure, like, I want you to be better technically, and I want to share that with you, and hopefully you can grow from this. I'm not one of those artists that I don't like putting other artists down to make me feel better. I used to do that more in college and a little after because everything felt like a competition, and the way to get ahead was to like push the ones behind below. And even though I never really did it publicly or to people that I cared about, even the people that I don't know, like artists that, you know, have a lot of social media following, I think it's very easy to rag on them and be like, oh, well, they only do X and X, and that's why they're popular, because people don't know what real taste is anymore. You know, it's just like shut your mouth. Like, who are you to bring another artist down? Instead, try to be encouraging, try to build a greater sense of what art can be, and others will follow, and then you'll be able to be inspired from those people. And if someone wants to draw the things that you don't like, don't follow them. Anyways, Carcat says, what about Audra Auclair? Do you like her art? Why do I know this name? Was this the one that won the Spectrum Award? Oh, no, Audra. Okay, yes. This is Key loves Audra. And actually, I do too. She is very, very similar to James Jean in the fact that her stuff will punch you in the face. And actually, I should really look at her art more. Oh, she has an art book. Perfect. Guess what I'm going to be buying today? I think Audra is one of those artists that are so fearless that they aren't afraid of having some pieces along the way that aren't that great and that she might consider as to be shortcomings. But you know what? She doesn't care because she can pop them out quickly. And I shouldn't say that like a bad thing. She's able to pop them out because she's so confident in her work. Well, thank you, Stargamer, for following. Where often I think I'm not confident in some of the pieces I do, and hence why I think it takes me longer. So I look to artists that are more confident and very obviously confident, and it's usually the quicker artist, admittedly. And I am not a quick artist. And sometimes I can be. When I think I'm most confident is when I'm the quickest. And then when I'm like noodling is when I know I should be working. So I'll be working, but like I'll have Netflix on in the background. I'm not really like working that hard, you know. That happens to all of us, I feel. And yes, I love Audra Auclair. ZA says, so basically the middle profile view is more empty, right? Yes, that would be correct. The ear is actually a little bit in the middle, but yes, for the most part. Fem says, any chance the collector is going to be a print on your store? Don't have the money to keep a Patreon pledge up every month, but I don't want to just pledge 1 month to get the print and then drop it because I want the print. Fem, I would not get offended. Well, thank you, Blue Sage, for following. I would not get offended if you followed me for a month to get the print and then left. I totally know that a lot of people will do that, but since you're one of those people that have been such a great force in the community, that it would not bother me at all. So no, if I see you come in, get the print and then leave, I'm telling you right now, do that. Get your print for $10. You've earned it. I don't care that I don't make money off that. Because I honestly, I would send it to you free anyways. Bugle says, I need to write all these names down. How do you spell Audra, and who was the other person that paved her own way? So Wiley Beckert. And if someone could put Audra as the last name, because I'm sure I'll spell it wrong. Oh wait, no, here it is. There we go. So yeah, those are the two artists that we're talking about. And I think the more that we expand the artists that we look at, the better. And that's why if you guys are in the Discord community, please put in the family room, just talk about maybe some artists that inspired you, or even if we put them in the reference section, because I want to continue to expand my list of artists, because sometimes we think that we have seen all the artists that exist today, or even the ones of yesteryear. But in reality, we only know like a fraction of all the artists that actually exist and the work that they create. And I think we just need to continue to expand upon that to help us grow as artists. Okay, the last question I got here, or I'll do a couple. Wait. Oop, just dropped on me. Oh, there we go. Let's see here. Where's that question? Ellen, hey Ellen, says, is there any way to lower the amount of the pledge to Patreon after you've pledged once? Because I want to support you so bad, but money is a struggle at the moment. Yes. So you can up it to 10 or whatever you're at, and then get the print and then drop it back down. It's funny that I'm like explaining how to do this just because I know like I would probably be in a similar boat if I was not the most financially like secure, but I really wanted the print or I really want to support the artist. So I'm telling you how to get the print for $10. You just pay the $10 on Patreon. It charges once a month. So all you have to do is pay once when you join and then drop it down or even drop it completely by the end of January and you won't be charged again, but you'll still get the print. Ella says, look up this artist on Instagram. I will do that really quick because we still have a little bit of time. I want to see who you're talking about. Oh, I literally just liked one of their images this morning. I already follow them. It was the one with the umbrella, and it's raining within the umbrella. But if you actually look on the Instagram that Ella just posted, the one right under that drawing with the girl with the star pattern, the constellation, I think that is lovely. I think that's such a great piece of work. This is another artist where I am so excited to see where they go because I believe I might be wrong on this, but I believe they're a younger artist. And when you see an artist that is younger that is pushing out a lot of powerful work, and it still has some simpleness to it. It is a lot of like just profile stuff. And I've been there. I know what it's like doing that stuff. But then you can kind of get like hints of where they might go from there. And I'm just excited. I'm very excited to watch where this one will end up. Okay. Fem says, haha, thanks, but please don't send it for free. That's too expensive. I'll just pop it in on Patreon for a month then. No, you're too kind, Fem. Cactus says, put more of your prints on your store, please. Eventually I will put the small prints on the store. I'm working with Kat right now to make that happen. We're trying to create a backlog first for all the cons that we're going to this year, and then we'll go ahead and upload more. Well, I thank you, Leech_er, for following. Okay, I think that's all I got for today. I have a few things I need to do, and one of those things are Subway, and then tomorrow I'm going snowboarding, so I got to start prepping for that. So thank you so much, you guys, for coming to this live stream. I do these every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Time. And next week I will do a how to draw in profile as and not really requested, but I think a lot of people might be wondering how to draw a profile with more accuracy and proportion. And I was a teacher for 6 years. I kind of know a few tips that I think would be good to share and that would give you a better sense of how to draw a profile and with clarity. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing next week. And then the week after that will be our critique stream. There is a contest for the best, or not for the best, well, kind of, for the top 5 emojis that are user created on the Discord community right now. So you can go ahead and do that if that intrigues you. You can also use the new Astrid emoji that I created like 2 days ago. And I wouldn't be surprised if I end up popping a few more in there sporadically, just because they're fun to make. Emojis are pretty fun and playful. Okay. I want to thank you guys again so much for coming to this basically ramble of me talking for 2 hours. And I'll most likely post something on Instagram with all of the artists in case you missed one or in case you want to follow them on Instagram. Okay, thank you so much. And one more shout out to my mods. I'm going to actually take more time to actually look at these individually. This is just such a nice gift. I can't believe you guys did that. So thank you so much. And yeah, I will talk to you guys next week. And I'll be on the Discord. I'm definitely way more active on it, and I continue to be that way for all of 2019. Okay, bye. I'll stop talking. Bye.